Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra. Jai Gauranitai, 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 Jai Gauranitai. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vishnavad Paramahans Paravrajak Charis Tadasismad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Prem Sigahas Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath, Shamkund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki, Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Sundar Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaur Premanande, all All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Put the table here. Put that table. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna devotees. Well, it's very nice to be here for the winter festival. And, you know, I've been thinking last few days or so about the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And on this coming Wednesday is the disappearance day of Srila Sanatana Goswami. And, well, is it the actual disappearance day of Bhakti Churu Maharaj? Or is it, anyway, I know there's the festivals taking place. And maybe it's the actual day, I'm not sure offhand. Huh? Oh, it is. Actual day of disappearance of Bhakti Churu Maharaj. So, but anyway, I've been thinking about these things, and I thought we could just say a few words about different of the 6 Goswamis, because they're just really amazing personalities, and they did all sorts of amazing things, and really wonderful, really beautiful things, actually. So, just give me a minute, I'll have to locate a verse. Well, maybe I'll just tell you some stories, actually. Yeah, I think that's just what I'll do. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Actually, I will read a verse. This is a verse about Sanatana Goswami. Just give me a mo, and we'll get there. So yeah, this is a really important little story about Sanatana Goswami and Lord Chaitanya. Okay. And what happened was, I'll just briefly go through it, not in so much detail, but what happened was that Sanatana Goswami, staying in Jagannath Puri, one day, well, every day, he would visit Lord Chaitanya, who lived in a different part of the town. which in those days was not big. It's sort of bigger than a village, a town, small town. So one day, Sanatana Goswami arrived, and Lord Chaitanya noticed that Sanatana Goswami's feet were blistered. It was midsummer. And of course, the weather there in midsummer is hot. So, probably regularly around 40 degrees, something like that, but really quite hot. And he asked Sanatana Goswami, why are your feet blistered like that? And Sanatana Goswami said, because I walked around on the beach and I came up the back way, the long way, to your place. And Lord Chaitanya asked, well, why did you do that? Why didn't you just walk sort of down the main street, which goes right in front of the Jagannath temple? And Sanatana Goswami explained there was a lot of people around and a lot of pujaris and others who take part in the deity worship there. Because, devotees, here we're in New Jagannath Puri. I'm not sure offhand how many pujaris we have. I don't know if anyone knows, but anyway, some number of pujaris we have. But in old Jagannath Puri, in the old Jagannath Puri, the other one in India, there they have approximately 1,200 pujaris, cooks and helpers, people taking part in the deity worship program. So Sanatana Goswami said it was very busy, and all these pujaris and others and cooks and so on, they're coming and going and coming and going. And at that time, Sanatana Goswami had a very serious skin disease, really terrible, open sores which were oozing, just very unpleasant and of course very painful for him. And he said that I was afraid if I walk in front of the entrance of the temple, all these pujaris and others are coming and going, and they don't really look where they're going. And someone's bound to just bump into me and get some of this, these discharges from my wounds on their bodies, and they may not notice it, and then they'll go back on the altar unclean, and it'll be an offense. It'll be my offense. So I came around on the beach the long way, and it was hot, and the sand was hot, and my feet got burnt. That's what he explained. And Lord Chaitanya was very impressed. And he spoke these two verses, which I'll just read right now. Yadyapyo tumihao jagata pavana toma sparshe pavitrahaya deva muni gana tatapi bhakta swabhava maryada rakshana maryada palanahaya sadhura bhushana, which means, and it's Lord Chaitanya speaking, of course, my dear Sanatan, although you are the deliverer of the entire universe, and although even the demigods and great saints are purified by touching you, it is the characteristic of a devotee to observe and protect the Vaishnav etiquette. Maintenance of the Vaishnav etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. And the next verse, I'll just read the translation. If one transgresses the laws of etiquette, people make fun of him, and thus he is vanquished, both in this world and the next. By observing the etiquette, you have satisfied my mind. Who else but you could show this example? That's Lord Chaitanya appreciating Sanatana Goswami for his taking the trouble to avoid possibly committing an offense. He really took these things like standards of behavior and what Krishna appreciates and what Krishna does not appreciate, all these things very seriously. And of course it's a long story, but anyway, we'll just say that about it. It's a really nice point, and you must know, we should all know that if we do the right things, if we learn, first of all, what are the right things, what are the wrong things, and then we do the right things and avoid the wrong things, you must know, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Krishna, they like it, and they will notice you. And when you get noticed by the Supreme Lord, and the Lord notices that, oh, look at this person, really making an effort to do things which please me and avoid things which displease me. When you do like that, well, you know what happens. Krishna notices you, we said. But did you know, devotees, Krishna has a little black notebook. Did you know that? Little black notebook. Now he may have a little bit black mini iPad or something, I'm not sure. But anyways, traditionally, he's got a little black notebook and a little black pen and a little stock of stars, sticky stars, silver ones, gold ones, I guess bronze ones, something like that. So when Krishna notices that you're doing some nice service and your attitude is nice and your standard of behavior is nice, and you're not one of these, I don't know what to say, but like you're not one of these sloppy devotees who just sort of a don't care devotee, just do whatever feels good rather than whatever's right. But if you're really one of the ones who tries to do things nicely, then Krishna, after he's seen you do that a few times, he writes your name down in his black book. And if you really did well, he'll put a gold star by your name. And when you got a gold star by your name, that's it. You're on your way, basically, back home, back to Godhead. You get a few gold stars and shoo, off you go on the spot. So yeah, I mean, it may sound a little mildly amusing or something like that, but actually it's true. It is true. In principle, at least, it's definitely very true. Krishna cares. Krishna feels. Krishna's watching. And even neophytes like us, Krishna's watching us too. We are all essentially neophytes. I'm a neophyte. I have been a devotee less than 50 years. I am a neophyte. I'm still one of the new boys. Yeah. So anyway, that's nice. That's something to do with Sanatana Goswami. specifically. And, well, there are many stories about that type of thing, standards. Here's another one. It's about, who's it about? It's about it's about Raghunath Das Goswami. Yes, that's right. Raghunath Das Goswami. He was very austere, super austere. His program was as follows. He chanted 64 rounds a day, about 64 rounds a day. And he gave class about Lord Chaitanya for 3 hours. 3 hours. We generally don't have long classes like that. He would give class every day about Lord Chaitanya, some amazing things about Lord Chaitanya. After he'd done his 64 rounds, then, interesting thing, he would offer obeisances to deities, different deities, 1,000 times a day. And those were dandavats, not, down, up. Prabhupada called it jackknife obeisances, just down, up, as fast as you can do it. Yeah. And if you're sitting cross-legged, you're sitting down in the temple room cross-legged and, the curtain opens, something happens like that, and everyone's offering obeisances. But you just lean forward. You don't actually get up and, on your hands and knees at least, but just while sitting there cross-legged, you just lean forward, touch your head to the floor. Prabhupada called that lazy man's obeisances. Yeah. So, but Raghunath Das Goswami, he did dandavats on the floor 1,000 times a day, every day, to different deities. And if you think that's something, special or extraordinary, he offered obeisances to 2,000 devotees every day. 2,000 different devotees. That's quite a program, isn't it? We're not physically equipped, emotionally equipped, or psychologically equipped to attempt to really practically do any of that. What to speak of the whole program, but that was his program. So there's Chaitanya Charitamrita says that Raghunath Das Goswami, he steadfastly maintained those standards every day. Even when he was unwell, it took so long, that whole program took so long. He was busy 22.5 hours a day. So half an hour he'd lie down and have a rest. Half an hour he'd take bath. And half an hour he'd eat something. That was generally his program. But sometimes he would forget to do those things. And after some days, someone would have to remind him, Raghunath Das Goswami, you have not eaten or slept, etc., for 4 or 5 days. You should do it. And then he would very nicely say, oh yes, thank you very much. And he'd do those things. So that there's this very nice story. It's really one of my favorites. There was this group of devotees visiting Radhakund, Shamakund. And Raghunath Das Goswami was living. He was actually living on the banks of Shamakund, in fact, but just practically next to Radhakund, kind of where they meet. And so anyway, there was this group of pilgrims visiting Radhakund, Shamakund, and one day they went to have darshan of the different deities in the different temples. Because, well, at this point there's quite a number of temples there, but even at that time there was, I don't know, really several or 10 temples and sets of deities. So they went, they're going temple to temple and offering obeisances and having nice darshan and getting some mahaprasadam and all these things. So they came to one temple and they came in, and there was Raghunath Das Goswami in front of the deities offering prostrated obeisances, dandavats, on the ground in front of the deities. So they came in, they offered their obeisances, and they stood up to have darshan. But then they noticed Sanatan Goswami was still down. He was still down, flat out on the ground. And so anyway, they thought, well, he's having sort of longer obeisances maybe. So they had little darshan, for a minute or something. And then they noticed Raghunath Das Goswami, he's still down. And then it occurred to them, it looks like he can't stand up. He can't get up. Because he was old at that time. He lived to be, I don't know, something like in his 90s, Raghunath Das Goswami. So they realized that he cannot get up. So they went and very gently and nicely they picked him up and dusted him off. And he thanked them. And then they said that Raghunath Das, you are such a great devotee. We all know that. And Krishna knows that. And now you're so elderly and physically indisposed. So you don't need to go right down on the ground, prostrate yourself, full dandavats on the ground. You can just stand there in front of the altar like this and offer some prayers. And Krishna, he'll understand, of course he will. So why don't you do that? And Raghunath Das Goswami said, thank you so much. What a wonderful suggestion. That's a very good idea. Thank you, thank you. And then they went their separate ways. Then devotees, the next day sometime, the same group of devotees was going around and having darshan again in the different temples. And they came to that same temple. And there was Raghunath Das Goswami prostrated on the ground again. So they came in, they offered their obeisances, they had darshan. Raghunath Das was still on the ground, but they thought it's okay. So they just carried on. If he wants to do like that, he can do like that. So, yeah, and talking about Raghunath Das Goswami, there's a nice story that when he was doing his 64 rounds, he would oftentimes, his chanting is so profound, so attentive, and he becomes so absorbed in the transcendental sound vibration that he would oftentimes enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. It means go into a trance-like state and enter into the pastimes and just lose contact with the external reality, so-called reality, you might say. So one time he did that, and in the pastime, Radha and Krishna, someone had prepared a big pot of amazing sweet rice for Radha and Krishna. But there was just so much sweet rice. Radha and Krishna had as much as they wanted. There was just plenty left over. So it was distributed amongst the gopis, particularly the manjaris, who are the youngest of the gopis. They're like 7, 8 years old, something like that. The Astasakis, they're more maybe teenage or just around something like that. Oh, Parthasarathi Maharaj ki jai. We are in a tent again. Tents. My life for a tent. Please sit down and relax, everyone. So there we were, and Radha and Krishna had in the pastime in Vrindavan, they had as much sweet rice as they wanted, and there was plenty left. It was distributed amongst particularly the manjaris. And Raghunath Das Goswami, when he would go into this meditation, into this trance-like state, and enter the pastimes and just lose contact with the external world, he would go into his position as a gopi. He's one of the manjaris himself. So there he was as one of the manjaris there. And all the sweet rice, nectarian, beyond nectarian sweet rice. I don't know who makes the best sweet rice in New Jagannath Puri. Any suggestions, any thoughts? Avikar Krishna Prabhu? Anyway, whoever it is, this is even a lot better actually, like another dimension, just even beyond another dimension of amazingness. So it's all being distributed amongst the manjaris. And there was so much that everybody had so much. And Raghunath Das Goswami, maybe someone can help this devotee here. So, I think it's going to be, well, so we got a new saying. if the devotee can't get to Parthasarathi Maharaj will go to the devotee. That's caring. That's devotee care. So, right, Raghunath Das in his gopi form had so much sweet rice, just because it was the remnants of Radha and Krishna. It's just like something incredible, just full and full and full of bhakti and love and prema. So then after that, Raghunath Das Goswami came back to external consciousness, and he's chanting his rounds. And, well, it's in the morning. And so time's moving on a little bit, coming up to lunchtime. He would eat once a day, sort of middle of the day or early afternoon sort of thing. But he was feeling a little nauseous, stomach a little upset. So he told his assistant, whose name I think was Krishna Das, he told him, I won't take lunch. My stomach's upset. My stomach's upset. You know, I just can't manage. So the assistant went and got an Ayurvedic doctor to check on Raghunath Das Goswami's health, on his upset stomach. And so the Ayurvedic physician came, and you probably, you know, if you've been to one, you know how they do it, how they're meant to do it. They're meant to take a reading from your pulse. That, yes. Nowadays, you don't really get many who can do it properly. I don't know if you get any. But in those days, you did. So there's the doctor now. He's feeling Raghunath Das Goswami's pulse. And he's going sort of like, And he said, well, this is amazing. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. According to my reading, Raghunath Das Goswami has got indigestion from eating too much sweet rice. And Raghunath Das Goswami, you know, he barely ate anything. He would generally have 1 leaf cup of buttermilk a day, full stop. That was it. So sweet rice, you know, sweet rice is sort of luxury type of prasadam, feast style. And all the devotees who were there, you know, they're concerned, and they hear this, and they thought, what? Raghunath Das Goswami, sweet rice. You know, he hasn't taken sweet rice since before, when he was a householder. For years he hasn't taken sweet rice. So what is this? And so they asked the doctor, can you please check again? So again, he took the pulse reading, and he really concentrated, and everyone's really concerned. And he said, you know, it's a fact. According to my reading, Raghunath Das Goswami has indigestion from eating too much sweet rice. And all the devotees said, oh, come on, what sort of doctor are you? You know, this is physically totally impossible, and get out. So they kicked him out, and they found another doctor. So this other doctor came, and he did the same thing, you know, the pulse reading. So he did another pulse reading, and he said, you know what? Raghunath Das Goswami has indigestion from eating too much sweet rice. And all the devotees, they just they didn't say anything, they just left it. So, yeah, Raghunath Das Goswami, amazing personality, really amazing personality. And he was the one who developed Radhakund Shamakund. Yeah. So anyway, let me tell you one more story. What shall I do? Yeah, let me tell you one more story and we'll see. Maybe Parthasarathi Maharaj will be merciful, Hare Krishna, as he always is, and say some words. But anyway, let me tell you this story. This is a nice story. That Rupa Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, he was living at Tir Kadamba. This is a beautiful pastime place, quite close to Nandagram. It's probably a kilometer or something like that out from the hill, because this hill just sort of goes straight up out of the plains at Nandagram, and then it's all flat all around. So out there, a little out, is Tir Kadamba, sacred place. And there's a bhajan kutir of Rupa Goswami there, and he would stay there a lot. They say that he wrote part of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu there. So there he was. And it was Srila Sanatan Goswami's appearance day, birthday. You know, coming up next week, Wednesday, is his disappearance. This is now the appearance day, which is shortly after. It's in August. Yeah, it's in August, his appearance day. Oh, no, that's Rupa Goswami. Anyway, okay. It's Sanatan Goswami's appearance day, birthday. And Sanatan Goswami at the time was living just sort of on the other side of Nandagram, more or less, right next to a nice lake called Pavan Sarovar. And Rupa Goswami's on the other side, probably 4 or 5 kilometers away, something like that. 3 kilometers, I don't know. Okay, so there they are, and there's Rupa Goswami, and he knows it's my older brother's appearance day, and he is one of my spiritual masters. So it's his Vyasa Puja day, and I should offer him something special. I'd like to cook something special for him, but what can I do? I'm just living out here in the forest, and I've got nothing. So anyway, he was thinking it would be nice, but he couldn't do anything. And he thought, I would like to make some sweet rice. I'd like to make some sweet rice. Just while he's thinking like that, one young girl, village girl, because on the hill there, the Nandagram hill, is the village. So one of the village girls just appeared out of the forest with the ingredients for sweet rice. Basically, some milk, some sugar, and some rice, some nice, very nice rice, and maybe a little saffron. Yeah, like this. Ingredients for sweet rice. And she just walked up out of the forest up to Rupa Goswami, and these things are in pots stacked up like this, and she just gave them to Rupa Goswami. Here, take this, bang. And now he's got it. So she said, you know, there was a wedding in the village yesterday, and this was left over. And my mother told me to come out into the forest, find some baba, and just give it to him. So there you go. There you go. That's it. And she turned around, and she didn't even just like walk off. She more or less vanished. Suddenly she just wasn't there, basically. And Rupa Goswami's really taken aback. I was just a minute ago thinking about making some sweet rice for Sanatana Goswami on his Vyasa Puja day, and this happens. So he did. He made some sweet rice. And then he walked around a few kilometers to the other side, and there was Sanatana Goswami, and Rupa Goswami came in and said that I've prepared this as a special offering for your Vyasa Puja day, some sweet rice. Please take some. So Sanatana Goswami, he took some little leaf cup or something and put some sweet rice in, and he took some, just a little, like a mouthful or two, and he just put down the cup and said, where did you get this from? And Rupa Goswami said, well, you know, there was this girl from the village, and she just came out of the forest, and she told me there was a wedding in the village yesterday. This was left over. Her mother told her, come and give it to one of the sadhus in the forest. She gave it to me, and so I made the sweet rice. There you go. And Sanatana Goswami took another mouthful or two, and he said, you know, I have tasted the remnants, the sweet rice remnants of Jagannath in Jagannath Puri. I have tasted the remnants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but I've never tasted anything like this. That was Srimati Radharani. And she gave you these divine ingredients, incredible ingredients. And Sanatana Goswami started crying and said, you have engaged Srimati Radharani in my service. Oh no, oh no. And he was lamenting, how could this happen? Radharani serving me. Oh gosh, it's just not right. So he cried for a little while, and he's sitting there looking at the sweet rice, because there's quite a bit of sweet rice there. And Sanatana Goswami said to Srila Rupa Goswami, give me some more of the sweet rice. So they both took the sweet rice. And as they were taking the sweet rice, their tears of ecstasy were dripping into the sweet rice. Yes, so there you go. Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai. Srila Sanatana Goswami ki jai. Raghunath Das Goswami ki jai. So now His Holiness Parthasarathi Maharaj will address us.
Om Agena Tamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshmalatamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Sambadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Atapata Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Shijivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sagana Lalita Shri Vishavitam Cha. Everyone. Hey Krishna Karana Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopi Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kancha Gaurange Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sudadevi Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha. Everyone, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Continuing His Holiness Srila Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj's theme, we're talking about Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, who spent 16 years, I think, living in Jagannath Puri. So, of course, this is the Jagannath Puri temple. It's very nice. A great offering to Srila Prabhupada, the new Jagannath Puri temple, in the center of Phoenix. When I went to take darshan, before going in, there was a breeze. So, the original Jagannath Puri temple in India, it's also built on a hill. It's also built on a hill. Yeah. So, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami spent longer than any of the other Goswamis in Jagannath Puri, some 16 years I've understood, serving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is known as Priyojana Acharya. So what does Priyojana mean? This is the part when you're supposed to answer. Huh? It's the goal. Priyojana, it's the goal. Sometimes we get a little confused. What is the goal in Krishna consciousness? A house by the sea. That's Pilito Bay. Akala TV. Mercedes. We get a little confused. What is the real goal? But the real goal of our practice, which is technically called sadhana bhakti, is to awaken the stage of bhava bhakti. And bhava bhakti, Srila Prabhupada has defined as devotional service and ecstasy And the purpose of Bhava Bhakti is to awaken Prema Bhakti, which is pure love for Krishna. Pure love for Krishna may also be pure love for Narayan. It can be also pure love for Ramchandra. It can be pure love for Krishna in Dwarkadish, in Dwarka, referred to as Dwarkadish. It can be pure love for Krishna. But there are numerous incarnations of Krishna. Just like you go down to Belito Bay and try to count the waves. Can you achieve that? It is hopeless. So the incarnations of God, more numerous than the waves. We only know a few. Nrsingadev, Vamanadev, Matsya. Just a handful we know. So Prayojana means to awaken one's love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because Krishna is the source of all avatars, he is called what? Anyone? Avatari, the source of all avatars. So the worship of Krishna would include the worship of all his expansions, such as Vishnu, Narayan, Ramchandra, etc. So Prayojana means the ultimate goal. So we have not attained that ultimate goal yet. We're on the path. All of us are on that path. We've started. We've made a good start. But we haven't attained that very high level yet. But we can do, actually, even in this lifetime, we can actually do it. So these Leelas of Raghunath Das Goswami are someone who's attained that Prayojana stage. So we can simply listen with amazement, but we cannot imitate. We can't imitate. Imitate is anuka. We don't imitate, but anusa, we follow in the footsteps. So we humbly try to follow in the footsteps of personalities like Raghunath Das Goswami. But actually we can't. It's too high. It's too exalted. It's too beyond our ability. So, of course, Raghunath Das Goswami's representatives, Bhaktivinoda Bhaktisiddhanta, we can't even follow in the footsteps of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It's too exalted. It's too high. We can relate something to Srila Prabhupada. He was married. How many of you are married? Or rather, how many of you are not married? Me and Maharaj. That's because no one would have me. And he's very intelligent, so he just avoided it. Actually, I'll tell you a secret. I've been now practicing devotee for 50 years, but my authorities tried to get me married twice. I refused. They sat me down and said, blah, 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 I'm married. And I said, blah, 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 no. That was Bhagavan. Twice. I refused. So Srila Prabhupada was married and also ran a business. Some of us run business. And he had children. And many of you have children. That's a tremendous responsibility. So we can relate to a certain degree to Prabhupada's life. We think of him as that sannyasi Bengali um, at the later stage of his life with the walking stick. But he was also married. He was younger. There are pictures of him with a moustache. Of course, that doesn't mean that we go out and grow our moustache and become a Mustafa. But he did have moustache. Pictures of Bhaktisiddhanta with a moustache. So we can relate a lot to what Srila Prabhupada went through, and we try to follow his example. There's 2 points here. I'm going to ask you now to respond. There's following the example, and there's following the instruction. And both we stress. You hear this when devotees talk about Prabhupada or Raghunath Das Goswami or Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So following the example and following the instruction, which is more important? The first one or the second one? Anyone for the first? Following the example. Second? Yes. To follow the instructions is more important. I can give you a classic example. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to follow the morning program. He wanted us to attend Mangalarti. And he emphasized this many times. But he didn't attend the official Mangalarti. Some private internal thing may have gone on, but he didn't officially stand there. Srila Prabhupada started his own institution. He called it Lord Chaitanya's Sampradaya in the Western world. But does he want us to create our own institution? You know, the Phoenix branch of the International Society for whatever it is. Now he wants us to cooperate within the institution. We don't need to create our own little institutions. So following the instructions is superior. Even we can use the example of Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna would perform Rasa Leela many times, numerous times. And this would go on for a day or a night of Lord Brahma, 4 billion years. So does that mean that we follow in Lord Krishna's footsteps and do the same? Should we do the same tonight, midnight? Go and do some dancing with members of the opposite sex. Of course, now you can do it with members of the same sex. And it's legal. Now, we don't do that. But we follow Lord Krishna's instruction, abandon all other varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. You know that verse. Sava Dhamman, Mame Kam, everyone. Aham Tam Sava Papebhyo. Yeah. Another example is some people, they follow, well, this is in the Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 33, text 34, 35, that people sometimes follow Lord Shiva's example, and they say it is all right to take intoxicants. But Lord Shiva also drank the ocean of poison. So now you just walk off and drink a puddle of arsenic. You know, we're not going to see you again. So following the instruction is superior. But if the example reinforces the instruction, then that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So Raghunath Das Goswami is not of this material world. He's Nityasiddha, eternally liberated, but appeared, and he can be understood as a practitioner of sadhana bhakti, but also a practitioner or Jivan Mukta Mahapurush, both. He can be seen as both. But he's not the first, of course. He's not a simple practitioner of sadhana bhakti. He's simply doing that to set the example. That's all. Chanting 64 rounds. He didn't have to, but as an example. That's all. Bowing down to the Vaishnavas. Dvi Sahasra. As Maharaj said, Sahasra thousand. Dvi, 2,000. 2,000. So he's doing this as an example. And living at Radhakund for some 48 years. That is something which we should be very cautious about. We don't just pack our bags and leave Grove End or Stonebridge and fly off to Radhakund and think we can stay there. The Acharyas have warned us, actually. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta even has said, I will not stay at Radhakund, at least physically. I will go and do some service, and then I will retire to a slightly lower place. Of course, in spiritual life, there isn't higher or lower, but he mentioned I will go to some slightly lower place. He said, Radhakund is for my Guru Maharaj. It is for my Param Guru, Srila Gokishore, Srila Bhaktivinoda. So he's speaking, giving us a cautionary warning that we can't just gate crash. You know that word, gate crash? Saturday night, gate crash? You can't gate crash Lord Krishna's pastimes, Radharani's pastimes. I can't gate crash. If Ramaphosa, the respected Ramaphosa, is having some party, I can't just present myself, in my Phoenix Taz and just pop up and say, oh, it's me, Exa. I'm from Grove End, don't you know? He's my mate, Ramaphosa. You've got to be someone. So to enter in, to understand Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Radha and Krishna's pastimes, you actually have to be introduced. And our introduction will come from Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's pure servants, representatives. And that's our entrance. Other people, it may be others. That's all right. But our particular entrance into Gaur Leela and to Radha Krishna Leela, it's through the parampara, which is Prabhupada for us. Maybe not for others, but for us, Prabhupada, and his sincere servants. I don't say direct disciples because now we have grand disciples also. I've seen there are grand disciples and even great grand disciples who are extremely attached to Prabhupada, seemingly even more attached than some direct disciples. I've seen that. So this is our entrance. It has to be through this parampara, which means through Srila Prabhupada. Sampradaya. You know that word? Sampradaya. Sam means the correct. Sampra. Pra means superior. Daya means connection. The superior, correct connection. That's the definition of the word sampradaya. So we are in a sampradaya, and we are followers of Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And that is our entrance. Raghunath Das Goswami, just a little technical. This is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Anshalila, chapter 14, he's in Jagannath Puri and he sees a sand dune, and it's called Chatkapavita. Chatkapavita. And it reminds him of Govardhan Hill. And Raghunath Das Goswami has written a wonderful verse, Gauranga Kalpa Priksham, that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, he saw Chatkapavita. He immediately thought, I'm in Vrindavan, let me go to Govardhan Hill, and went running towards it. His associates ran after him. May that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awaken in my heart and madden me with love. Gauranga Hridaya Mudayama Mudayati. Let that Mahaprabhu awaken in my heart and madden me with love. So he started running towards Chatkapavita. Some of you may have visited that place. On that hill, right now, in Jagannath Puri, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had a house, or rather one room built, and he would do his bhajan there. The last Kartik that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spent in this mortal world in October 1936 was in Jagannath Puri. For 6 weeks he lived there. You can go to that same house. You can see the bed he slept on. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 500 years before, he's running to Chatkapavita, thinking it is Govardhan Hill. And he goes into a trance. So there it is mentioned that Lord Chaitanya had 3 conditions: Bahya Das, Antya Das, and Adhya Bahya Das. He was always in these 3 conditions. And Bahya Das means external. So this is the same with Raghunath Das Goswami, the same with any liberated soul. Bahya Das, it means you know who you are. You know who you are. I am a man. I am a woman. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes, I am a sannyasi, and would avoid too much or any association with opposite sex, and even the king, King Pratipuruda. So that's Bahya Das, Bahya Mukha, external consciousness. Then the opposite is Antya. Antya is when you've forgotten your material covering and you've assumed your sarup in the spiritual world. So Raghunath Das Goswami and Lord Chaitanya would sometimes do this. So Raghunath Das, as Maharaj was explaining, is an eternal associate of Radharani. So he would have this Abhiman. That word keeps on coming up, and it means conception. The word Abhiman means conception. So he would act in that mood, and that's when he was taking the sweet rice. See? So this is Antya Das. That means you're oblivious to where you are. You don't know you're in Phoenix. You're not identifying I'm a man or a woman. You're identifying with your eternal sarup, and everyone has a sarup, but we just don't know what it is at this stage. We don't know what it is. We shouldn't imagine it will come in the course of time. So Antya Das is Raghunath Das Goswami or Lord Chaitanya in their sarup. And then Adhya Bahya, half-half. Half-half. So you're half in, half out. So Lord Chaitanya, he went into Anchadas, and he's seeing Govardhan Hill, Chatakapava, and he's running towards it. And then he collapses on the floor, and he exhibits various spiritual symptoms of ecstasy. So these are technically called sattvika astika bhavs, and the word asta obviously means 8, and various anubhavs. Some of these anubhavs are so extraordinary, they've never been repeated. They're hardly even discussed because they're just too difficult for us to understand. For instance, blood would come out of the body of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Blood. His body would be expanded. His limbs would be separated. And there would be just skin. Or his limbs would retract into the body like that of a tortoise. Srila Raghunath also praised text number 4. Sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to the house of Kasi Mishra, and due to feelings of separation from Krishna, his transcendental body would be slackened. His arms and legs would be elongated, and he'd roll on the ground while piteously weeping all the time. Text 5. How wonderful it is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the Gambhira. That was where he stayed. Although there were 3 high walls and 3 strong doors. And later, due to strong feelings of separation, fell down amongst the cows of the Tailangi district, and his limbs retracted into his body like that of a tortoise. Those who have been to Jagannath Puri, if you see the Nishinga Dwara gate, the main gate, you can see on the left cows. I've seen, and they're eating. So these same cows, but back 500 years, Tailangi district. So Lord Chaitanya, his limbs retracted into his body like that of a tortoise. So these are called anubhavs. But they're so extraordinary. They're so difficult to understand. They're so unbelievable. They're not discussed. So Anchadas, internal, Bahidas, external, and in between. So Lord Chaitanya, he sees Govardhan Hill, he falls on the ground, exhibits various symptoms, and then the devotees, they come to see him. They're running after him, and they question him. He remains in this, you can say the word trance if you like, and then eventually he comes out of it. And then he's looking around in amazement. Now this is half-half. Remember I said? Half-half. He doesn't really know where he is. He's not really sure what's happening. So he starts relating his meditation, not knowing even who's listening. And he says, there I was at Govardhan Hill. And Krishna, I saw Krishna, and he played his flute. And Nishama Geetam Tadanangavadanam. And he attracted many gopis by the sound of his flute. And Radharani came, and others, many other gopis also came. And at that time, one of the gopis, doesn't mention which name, told me, go and pick some flowers. Go and pick some flowers. So I was picking flowers, and Radha and Krishna went into this cave, and then you all made this noise. You made this tumultuous noise, and you brought me back here. You see? So that's Ancha Das. So Raghunath Das Goswami would experience this all the time. But then he's a Jivan Mukta Mahapurush, and we are not. And we can't imitate. And if we try to imitate, then what are we? Prakrita Sajiyas. We're putting on a show. There's always that tendency put on a show. You come before Radha Radhanath, you come before Jagannath, you make sure everyone's looking at you, then you go like this, and you go like this, and you go like this, like this. And then I've seen sometimes they bow down, and it's almost like they're doing press-ups. Have you seen? Up and down, up and down, up and down. Bit of a show, but at least it's something. At least it's something. But you can't pretend. And we do have that tendency to pretend. There's two things you can pretend. You're very advanced and you pretend that you're not. And you're not very advanced and you pretend that you are. Have you got that? There's two people sitting on the stage. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj is very advanced, but he pretends that he's not. And I'm the opposite. I'm not very advanced, but I pretend I am. And he can't defeat me on this. Because if he defeated, then he'd be more advanced than me because he'd be pretending that I didn't pretend. And quite honestly, I don't know what I'm talking about. Have I got you, Maharaj? So, yes, Raghunath Das Goswami, to hear these stories is very wonderful. But we should understand that we can't imitate. We can't. There are people that try. You go there to Radhakund and other places, and they try. But this is not our line. Our line is through Srila Prabhupada. He specifically encouraged us to cooperate, unite, and preach. And through that line, through Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, then we can get what Raghunath Das Goswami was experiencing. But if we try directly to go to Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta, Srila Jiva, we're going to be in trouble. It's just too high. But that doesn't mean we can't hear about these things and appreciate. Asvasya, it means to appreciate. We should appreciate. So, yes, just say those few things about Raghunath. Anchadas, internal, opposite, Bahidas, and then Adhya Bahidas. And this is directly mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. On one occasion, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami was preparing to chant Krishna's holy name, and banks of Radhakund, started chanting, and then immediately he went into what is called Anchadas. And this means Sudasattva came, and pastime started to flow within his heart. He became inert, oblivious to where he was, who he was, stunned, not able to chant, not even able to chant within his mind. That's called manasa. And this went on for 24 hours. So in the course of 24 hours, he didn't even chant one round. Not even one name. He heard the warbling of the swans, and the warbling of the swans on the bank of Radhakund reminded him of the ankle bills, Nipura, of the gopis. And this caused different pastimes to come. Yeah. This has nothing to do with intelligence. It's way beyond intelligence. So our level of bhakti is on the level of intelligence. The alarm clock goes off in the morning, and we know we should get up and perhaps take a shower or wash our face and chant out aloud, Prabhupada has written in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it should actually be done out aloud. So this is platform of intelligence. And this is how we practice sadhana bhakti. And then gradually, by mercy, which descends, mercy always comes from above, we will advance to ruchi, where there is some real taste. And then ruchi becomes condensed, becomes thickened, and it goes to ashakti, which is great, great attachment to Lord Krishna, his name, gun, lila. And then gradually you come to the stage of bhav. And this can happen actually in this lifetime. Beyond that, you have to take birth again. And you take birth in the Lord's pastimes. You do not take birth in Phoenix. Phoenix is a no-no. You don't take birth in the higher planets. You take birth in the Lord's pastimes within this universe. Within a Brahmanda. Not correct to say this universe. Within some Brahmanda, somewhere in the material creation. And there you continue advancing. Then when those pastimes are finished, back to the spiritual world. So this all may sound very high and distant, but we're on the right path. And we just got to stick on that path and not do any type of offenses. And don't become like a monkey. What's the monkey famous for? The monkey. It's naked. It's renounced. It's jumping from branch to branch. It's vegetarian, but it's interested in sex. So vairagya, monkey renunciation. This goes on in the name of spiritual life. Monkey renunciation, putting on a show. We should avoid that. Try to avoid that and be honest. Yeah. So thank you very much. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami ki, Jagannath Subhadra Balaram ki jai, Gau Premanandi.